Why don't we bring on Tom Housenick from the Morning Call? Let's get a little baseball talk going on. Tom, how you doing today, man?
Good, guys. How's everything there?
Anytime that we can talk baseball, Jeff's face lights up and he gets really happy. So Jeff's happy right now.
Even though
Right,
it's freezing outside.
it is slightly
I was
cold
going to
out,
say, I
but
just picked my daughter up to school. It's freezing, is right.
I was warmed
35.
up today watching Bryce Harper step in the box and blast a 2-run home run right at the start, his first thing that he did. What's your observation so far of what you've seen in spring training? And then we'll get to maybe some specific players and questions.
Well, I just think there's just a breath of fresh air, not only because, there's the chance that fans are going to be at Citizens Bank Park this year, but I just think with the roster makeup, especially in the bullpen, the health and the re-signing of JT Realmuto, there's just a lot of optimism floating around, and I think it's been good to see. I think, obviously Harper has a way of just making everything good as soon as he shows up, and now he gets a start today, and he homers right away. So you're never going to have to worry about that guy's effort or performance. I just think that right now everything is good, and again, we're a week into the spring training games. Things are always good for everybody, I guess, but I think it's particularly after the way everybody left last season, things couldn't be much better.
As you said, Bryce has now come into spring training, and today he launched a home run. What do you think about now that we've had Bryce for what, a year and a half? What do you think about Bryce's impact on the younger players?
Well, for sure they listen to him. So I think he recognizes that fact and acts not only performs accordingly, but the guy goes about his business every day the way he should, because everybody in that clubhouse is watching him, not just the young guys who are up there for the first time, not just the Bryson Stott who clearly looks up to him as much as anybody can look up to another baseball player. It's important that he does everything the right way, that not only just does he handle himself on the field, but it's in the clubhouse, it's with the media. It's every word he says. These guys are hanging on his every word, and they look up to him in every way. And it's really important that he kind of does things not only the right way, but just the way he communicates it with them. And so much of that can be unsaid. Again, going about your business, 4 hours before a game, nobody's watching except, a Bryson Stott or one of these young guys who are not going to be with the club this year, but they're in camp for a little while. They're going to watch everything he does. And it's important that he, at every step is not perfect, but it's just done the right way. Obviously, he's going to fail. Baseball is a game of failure, but he finds a way to reach these guys with whatever he says, but also the way he prepares and the way he takes care of his body in the off season, the way he plays every day hard as if it's the last game of the season. Those are critical things, I think, for a young guy to see.
One of the young guys that's getting a little look early in spring training is Mickey Moniak. You've had a chance to see him up close as he's gone up the ladder. What have you seen of Mickey Moniak? When you saw him in the minors and what you're seeing at least early on in spring training.
Well, first, he's one of those guys who you can tell knows how to play the game. I mean, there are guys, young guys with a lot of talent, with a lot of star power who don't really understand all the fine points of the game. Mickey clearly has that on his side. His work ethic is not in question. He's the first one into the batting cage routinely every day to try and work on things, probably to a fault because we've seen his body kind of just wear down physically the last couple of minor league seasons. So I'm sure he's worked on that. And again, his body is still filling out. I mean, he was such a pimple-faced kid when they signed him, and he's done nothing but take steps forward every year. And I think it's important that he recognize that because he is very hard on himself. But again, I like the way he plays defense. That's definitely improved as he's gotten older. He's gotten smarter at the plate, recognizing what pitchers are trying to do to him, understanding situations. Again, it's not happening as fast as everybody wants with a number one, but it's happening. He's moving forward, and I think that's a good sign for the Phillies for sure. And again, his confidence is intact, and that's obviously very important too for his psyche.
I just remember when we sat with him, God, it might be 2 years ago now with the pandemic, but he was saying he still got physical growing pains, like physical pain from growing each year. And so he was trying to, figure out what his body was going to be and how he was going to go through this all. But you're right. His attitude doesn't seem to have been dissuaded by the challenges and struggles that he faced. I did want to ask you, about the pitching. Your thoughts? Obviously, that was the Achilles heel last year. If they could have had a couple of leads with the bullpen, a couple of better starts, they'd have been in much better place. Your thoughts on the pitching, particularly Spencer Howard, and what you expect to see out of him this season, as somebody who's seen him a lot up close.
If his body does not fail him, his arm, his shoulder is fine, I think we're going to see big strides from him. Obviously, last year was a challenge in a lot of ways for him, particularly with that kind of crazy season, and then being put into the spotlight like that to pitch at the major league level. I would have loved to seen him just spend 3 months in a regular minor league season before he got the call. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of starts in the minor leagues, but every time he did, you just saw something that was like, wow, this kid has stuff. And again, he's still a raw talent because he pitched so little in high school and college leading up to becoming a professional. And here we are, only a few years into his professional career. And there's a lot there. His fastball just, can really jump on you. We saw some of that so far in spring training where he's reached 96, 97, where he was pretty much sitting most of the time he was in Double-A Reading a couple of years ago. The kid has kind of a poise that you just don't expect from somebody who has so little professional experience. Nothing seems to fluster him on the mound, although I'm sure at times he went back last year and said, man, I wish I reacted better to, whether it was giving up a first inning home run or a couple of runs early, or a mistake was made behind him that led to a bigger inning. Those are all growing pains, but he has the tools to be a number one or a number two very soon. And if he can give him 5-6 innings, obviously that was a big problem last year. He averaged 4 innings per start. If he can up that an inning or two this year, that would be definitely progress. And again, getting 1, 2, 3 innings will definitely help that. Getting your pitch count under control. Learn how to be efficient with that and putting guys away with maybe your second or third pitch instead of always trying to either overpower them or just try and force things. But again, I'm very optimistic about him if he's healthy, that he's gonna be part of that rotation for the season.
All right, so let's assume that he's part of the rotation. That means you have Wheeler, Nola, Howard, Eflin. There's about 8 guys in spring training right now that all could have that 5th spot, unless that 5th spot goes to, I'm going to say it, Vinny Velasquez. What are the chances that Vinny Velasquez finally goes to the bullpen, or do one of these 8 to a dozen guys somehow jump ahead and become that 5th starter?
You don't want to say that guys are cheering for Matt Moore to kind of be that guy to kind of resurrect his career, but I think the Phillies are hoping that he kind of is the guy that he was a few years ago. He's not going to have that electric fastball arm that he showed with the Rays, but I think best case scenario is somebody like him works out as the number 5. Velasquez can make the transition to the bullpen because, again, there are going to be games where the starter doesn't go the distance, and then he's going to be able to fill that hole. I think that's best for both parties in the long run. I really do. Velasquez is a heck of an athlete. He can probably play the outfield if he ever put his mind to it, with a year of working on that aspect. But again, I think he's had his chances. They pulled the plug quick on Pivetta, which was good for all involved, and shipping him out. And I just think they might be afraid the fact that they're leaving a guy out there that the electricity is there every once in a while. It teases you. It's like, okay, that's the guy. Now, if he can do it the next start, and then what happens the next start? It's back to 60 pitches, 3 innings, 4 runs, 5 hits, a couple of walks. It's kind of maddening to watch, and I'm sure as a pitching coach or a manager, it can be difficult knowing how much you've invested and knowing that I think everybody likes Velasquez. He's not a guy who doesn't work hard. He's not a guy who just, is kind of a bum. He's not. Everybody cheers for the guy. So it's hard to kind of say, look, this starting position is not for you. We've got some other guys here. We're going to give them the chance. And that's what I'd rather see them do now with, almost a month left of spring training. Say, look, you're going to work out of the bullpen. You're going to get a lot of work. It's going to be anywhere from the 3rd, 4th inning of a bad start to maybe a 6th or 7th inning spot. And you're going to get your work in and just move forward from that. Kind of make that decision, knowing that you have so many other guys that you can choose from to give you that 5th starter, and maybe even you have 6 guys for a while. I know Girardi, was asked about that early in spring training, about maybe a 6-man rotation for a little while, and maybe that works. But I still think even if you have that, Velasquez can't be one of those 6. That's just my
Selfish,
opinion based on what everybody's seen from him in the last 3 years.
Selfishly, it's best for me if Velasquez is in the bullpen because it means that Jeff won't be texting me on the second time through the rotation. It doesn't go quite as well as it did the first time around there. Did want to ask you before we let you go. Obvious little disappointment out in baseball town, out with the Iron Pigs out there. Delay at the start of the season. Your thoughts on the pushback for a month for the Iron Pigs? Yes, Jeff, I screwed up and said Baseball Town. I got Reading confused for a second with Bacon USA. How dare I? Tom, you can correct me. And what's the feel out there? Obviously, they're hoping to get some fans in the stands and excited to get back to baseball. But what's the feel out there for the Iron Pigs?
Well, there's no doubt this area has really embraced the franchise. Since it debuted in 2008, fans have come out. Attendance has not dipped. If it's it's minimal, if at all, in the 13 years, and that's saying a lot for a minor league franchise that again had a beautiful ballpark to start. They've always upgraded it. The prices have been reasonable, so fans have been consistently turning out to see the next star, whether it's an Aaron Nola who's here for just a handful of starts, or a Spencer Howard who you can only see because he's in the taxi squad group or whatever. But again, this is a big baseball area. People do make the trip to the baseball town if they had to see a guy, but everybody likes seeing these next stars right here, and I think Bryson Stott will be one that everybody will be excited to see at some point. Again, you get tired of you're going to see those veterans trying to hang on to a bench spot or fight for a bench spot or reclaim that youth, but ultimately what brings the fans out here for baseball reasons is to see that next star. And after a year off last year like it went, I'd imagine that the crowds this year will probably rival something of 2008 or 2009, where they were sellouts pretty much most nights. Again, it's 35 degrees outside now. The wind makes it feel like about 20, so it seems like it's far away. And now with that pushback month, it probably seems even farther. But as long as they know that there's something at the end of the tunnel that they're going to let, even if they let in 5,000 or 6,000 fans, that will be a huge step for the franchise, huge step for the area to see some pro baseball.
The minor leagues is about development, and the Phillies have just announced that Gary Jones is coming back to manage the Iron Pigs. What have you observed of Gary Jones in the way that he helps these players develop and make it to the big leagues?
I would describe him as a traffic cop. He lets his coaches do what they have to do with the specifics, whether it's with the pitchers or the hitters. He's there to step on somebody's throat if they get out of line, if they're not working the way they should. He just has that quiet demeanor about him most times, but you can tell when you piss him off. And if you're not playing hard, you're going to find out real quick what Gary thinks about it. And that's basically what he's there for. All right, just to make sure that everybody's doing the work they should be doing. They're putting in the time. They're doing things the right way, and that nobody's being a jerk in the clubhouse. He's had a couple of good clubhouses the previous 2 years before last year, where he doesn't have to babysit anybody or any group. But he's had some guys over the course of those 3 years that he's had to get on some people, and he's done it. That's basically what he's there for. Dusty Watson was probably more hands-on when he was there for the 1 year before he got promoted, because he took more on with his position. He took on the catchers that were there at the time, and Alfaro and Knapp were there. So you would see him out there at 2 o'clock doing more hands-on things than maybe Gary does. Gary's big thing is infield defense. So if you're going to see him out with a group of guys at 4 hours before first pitch, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be working on some defense, and they spent some long hours leading up to game time working on defense if it hasn't been up to his standards. So I think he's the right guy for the spot. He gets along with everybody. He just has a nice, easy demeanor, so there's no stress involved. It's not like it's a tough environment to be around in for some of these young guys who are going to get up there pretty fast. And obviously everybody's looking for them to make the next step. But Gary's a good guy for the role. He's a man of few words to the media, but he's always been a professional to everybody who's had to work with him, whether it's us or guys making their first trip to AAA or a guy getting sent down to rehab. He's been a pretty good guy to deal with, and that's why he's back for a fourth year.
Well, we encourage everybody to read your work in the Morning Call, follow you on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle so they can follow your stories?
It's at Tom Housenick.
We encourage everybody to check that out and can't wait to see you back out at the stadium one day soon, covering the game you love. Thanks so much for the time. We look forward to talking to you soon, man.
My pleasure, guys. Take care and stay warm.